All systems go. Clear for liftoff.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday. Talking fights. Not usual, of course, but this week, Waste Management, SHIPIT Nation crew will be in Phoenix. So big Marley flying out tomorrow morning. A lot of people flying out. So we're doing the show Wednesday today instead of Friday. Of course, all of our content will be up. If anything changes in Discord, like maybe Saturday, if some fight gets canceled, we'll go in Discord, give updates that way. But everything, fight rankings, projections, ownership, will be on the site like always. I will say, too, off the get-go, next week probably will be the same time. I'll be heading to Cali, my man Rio, UFC 298, Volk, Taporia, Anaheim. I will be there. So it's going to be another very busy weekend trying to have stuff up a little earlier. Big Marley, bring you in. Very excited to see you. Man, probably about 24 hours now I might be seeing you. How's your day going? Thoughts on this card? What's going on in your world?
Yeah, good, man. It's been a busy day, but I'm excited to get out there. Phoenix, go to that crazy Waste Management Phoenix Open. I've been watching videos. I'm not a huge golf fan. In and on and off, I'll watch some golf and play some DFS here and there. But I've never been to a PGA event, and I heard that this is the one to go to. So I've been watching like everything on YouTube, and now I'm even more pumped up. Looking forward to seeing you guys all out there, and hopefully we'll all cash together Saturday night after cashing on hopefully some golf bets as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a good time. I will say I'm not the biggest golf person. There's just a billion people, and like it's golf, so even finding a spot to watch some shots, it's here and there. Once drinks go down, though, you forget about golf. You try and enjoy the nice weather. We'll see about that. It's still cloudy right now, not the best, but it'll be a great time. No doubt. Excited to see all the SHIPIT crew. And again, if you're any member out there and you live in the Phoenix area, anywhere in Arizona, and you want to come out, we have an itinerary. Go in Discord Friday night. We got some golf, kind of like a top golf thing that we're doing. I think we have rented out like 8 to 11. Saturday we'll be at the casino. So we do have stuff. If any members are around in the area, want to hang out, go in the Discord, message me, message Tambo. We will all get together. It'll be a great time out here. No doubt about that. Big weekend. Super Bowl Sunday. Of course, we'll have content for that. MMA this weekend. Golf going on. That locks tomorrow. Check out the show from Hoop and Tambo. Check out everything on the site. NBA going on. Big slate there. Me and Rio will be talking hoops in 2.5 hours. Broad slate overviews at MMA before we go fight by fight. Right now, we have 14 fights. Fingers crossed. I mean, if I had to bet right now, I would say we probably lose one like usual. Hey, even if we have 13 fights would be great, though. Similar to last week, I think, in a lot of ways, more fights than 12, which is kind of rare nowadays. Only one favorite above minus 300. So I expect plenty of dogs to be barking again. I have a strong lean in the main event, which I like to see. But, man, I feel pretty solid about this card right now because there's plenty of fights we're going to get to that I'm like, I don't love this fight. And we'll get to plenty of fights. I'm like, I love this fight, and we'll go both ways. So can always leave money on the table. Can fade the main event, of course. The more fights, the easier to do that with. Any broad slate overviews, though, the top tier is similar to last week as well, I think, and a lot of no-name top-tier fighters, but they do have passed a lot of them to solid scores. So that's my broad slate overview. What you got?
Yeah, I'm kind of excited for this card. I just think that there's lots of ways to go. I do think that the main event will soak up a lot of ownership, but other than that, I don't see any plays that I think are going to be overly chalky. I think there's a lot of underdogs that are live, a lot of underdogs that have decent ceilings as well. So I'm excited for it. I haven't really made too many lineups, and I also don't know how many I'm going to make. How many are you making, man? We're going to be out on that golf course all day. Like if something happens, we're not really going to be able to change a lot.
If something happens, we'd be screwed. So probably for that reason, not many or in that way. And yeah, I mean, we'll see. Like we have stuff playing all Thursday night, Friday, Saturday. We'll see how many lineups I get to because one fight. Thing is, I don't expect Friday night, like we'll pretty much see how much time I have Saturday morning probably to build teams is how I see it, because I feel good after Friday when the weight misses and all that happen. If fights are canceled there, if a fight gets canceled Saturday, so be it probably. I'd try and like late swap. But yeah, to be honest, I don't know how many lineups. Probably not as many as usual.
Yeah, I'm thinking like 10 to 20, just hand build them this week. And then if something happens, just like a global player swap right before, I don't know, we'll see. But hopefully that does not happen and we get all these fights taking place.
Yeah, let's hope so for sure. We already we'll get to it, but Balaji Oki was supposed to fight Hadzovic out. We already got a short notice replacement, so we'll get to that. So 14 right now. We will go bottom to top like always. Again, this is on Wednesday. Like how we see the fight doesn't really change. I'm still a couple more fights I want to dive into a little more. I also want to see lines on some fights. It's like the Oki fight. We now don't have a new line. DraftKings still doesn't have, I think, 2 fights. We don't have prices on some guys. So still some things to change. Everything will be on the site finalized like always by Friday, though. First fight of the night, Daniel Marcos, Arichi Long, 9,300 Marcos, 6,900 Arichi Long. Marcos coming in, one of the bigger favorites at minus 250. Arichi Long plus 210 on the way back. This fight plus 120 to finish. Marcos plus 220 inside the distance. Arichi Long plus 365. This is one of the fights to start it off where I really don't love it too much. 2 primary strikers, fights favored to end or favored to go the distance. I think Marcos is the better, more technical, can mix in the leg kicks, probably the minute winner. Arichi Long does have power if he lands. I think this fight, though, probably goes to decision, and if it does go to decision, I don't think we'll want much exposure. I don't see much wrestling. Starting off the night with the underweight or fade fight for me. How do you see it?
Yeah, I pretty much agree. I think if it does go to a decision, then it's Arichi Lang that we would want in our lineups. Because if Arichi Lang's to win this fight, I think he's going to have to do a lot with his wrestling, land a few takedowns, keep top control time long enough for the judges to like it, or land some really big shots. And I would say those would be his edges in the fight, would be he's a better offensive wrestler. I don't see Marcos looking for any takedowns here. And I also think that Arichi Lang has more one-shot power. I do think Marcos, could just kind of piece him up on the feet and just land so much volume that he ends up putting him away. But if one of these guys is going to land one punch and knock the other guy out, I feel like it's Arichi Lang. So $6,900, my preferred play is going to be the underdog in Arichi Lang, because I'm confident he gets over 10x in a win, but he also has like 90 plus 100-point upside at that price. Whereas Marcos, if he wins a decision, I feel like he is going to score closer to 70 points, which is not going to cut it. And his inside the distance line is like plus 225 or something, maybe worse than that. Plus 220. So that's not great at his price for 9,300, especially with a guy who's not going to be landing takedowns throughout 3 rounds. So Marcos is going to be more of maybe with 10 lineups, I do end up fading him. But if I was making 150, I would want some Marcos lineups, because Arichi Lang is aggressive, and I think that aggressiveness could help Marcos and end up getting a TKO. But it is kind of TKO or bust, I think, for Marcos in this fight, and I'd rather pay up for other spots. So I would say, yeah, underweight tag to Marcos, closer to fade than overweight. And then Arichi Lang, I don't see him getting too much ownership, so I'd be fine getting a little bit of leverage to him.
Yeah, we see it the same way. So there's a couple fights. I'm still debating on how I want to take all of my guys. Like there's 3 fights mainly that I've been debating, like underweight, fades, been mixing and matching them. This is one of them. We'll get to this next fight as one of them. And then Dan Ige, Andre Fely. Those are all 3 of those fights I look at pretty similar. Slightly favored to go the distance, all primary strikers. And if you tell me all of them go 15 minutes, I probably don't want all of them. Is how I see it. So when we get to there, I'll probably in the next fight, I'll bring it up for you to rank those fighters or rank those fights in terms of your favorite to your least favorite. But I agree in this one. Right now I have it a fade. I do like Arichi Long more than Daniel Marcos, though, with the 2,400 in savings. And I do think he has more one-shot power, too. He can clip Marcos. I just think if it goes to decision, it probably is Marcos winning that as a better technical fighter. But not much interest. Not much love in the first fight of the card. Forgot to say hi to some people. Ben's always in here. What's going on, Ben? Sean Smith, Mark, a lot of familiar faces. Whaler in here as well. Talking 0 for 6 last week. hey, sometimes it goes like that. And I will say 0 for 6 or 3 for 3, usually you're still getting $0 back. So if you ain't first, you're last. That's all right. Always can get them back this week. Mark in here. John Kelly in here as well. What's going on, John? Hope y'all out there having a great day. We appreciate that like button. Appreciate that subscribe button. As always, keep it rolling. Next fight on the card. Hyder Emil taking on Fernie Garcia. We got Emil minus 190. Fernie Garcia plus 165 on the way back. This fight's plus 150 to finish. Looking at the finish or the inside of the distance props, Emil plus 265, Fernie Garcia plus 375. So I guess I'll just throw it to you because I kind of tipped my hand early. Fely, Ige, Emil Garcia, and then Marcos Arichi Long. Rank them in terms of your favorite fights to target to your least. But I see this fight similar to that last one, like two primary strikers. Fernie Garcia never been finished. I mean, he's very tough, 0-3 in the UFC. I'm picking Emil because Fernie just might be cheeks, but he's tough. I'm not sure Emil's very good. Like, it feels like it minus 190 or plus 165. I'm taking the dog money. So I don't know. Rank those three favorite fights. Either way, though, I like other fights on this card a lot more than this one. I'm just trying to get those three mainly done with my underweight and fade takes.
Man. Yeah, I'd say they're all super similar fights. I don't have a lot of interest in any of them, and I've kind of been going back and forth between 2-star and 3-star on the fight rankings. I don't really have a star that I have in mind yet. They all started at 3, and I think they're all moved down to 2 by now.
Yeah,
So I do think they're really similar.
page.
I don't have any strong feelings on the rankings, but I would say that my favorite would be Ige Fely, more so because of the underdog side. I'm picking Fely to win. Spoiler alert.
So all right, then say fighter then. If you just have like of those 6 fighters, if you have like 2 or 3, like Arichi Long,
Yeah,
Fely,
okay,
whatever,
yeah. My
say
two
those
favorite
then.
would be underdogs. We'd go Fely and then
Really?
Arichi Lang, actually. So
Okay.
both underdogs. Arichi Lang, more of a guy I think that could break the slate, whereas Fely, I think I'm playing for like 85 points, hopefully, and he can get there type thing. But also Fely's a lot more likely to get his hand raised.
Yeah, all that makes a ton of sense to me. Yeah, break down this fight for us. Either way, I don't like the 3 fights. You don't like the 3 fights, and if we keep all 14, I'll be playing a lot of the other fights more as a story of the day for me.
Yeah, and I don't like these first 2 fights because I'm picking the favorites to win, but I don't really love the price tags. Well, we don't have a price tag on Emil yet, but I expect him to be up there near the 9K range. And I think he's going to win just by being a better version of Fernie. I think he's the guy that has more power. He's the guy that's going to be pushing forward, setting the pace in this fight. He could be taken down, but I expect most of this fight to take place on the feet. And if we don't get a knockout, and Vegas doesn't think that we will, I don't think that we're going to get a really high score in this one because neither guy are heavy offensive wrestlers. And Emil can put up decent volume, but I just don't know that it'll put up enough in a decision for it to really matter, especially if he's not going for takedowns. So a fight I don't really care as much for, but I would probably rather have Emil for cheaper than Marcos personally.
I think this fight will probably be slid in. So what we're waiting on this and the Breek fight later to get pricing. We have 8,800 open and 8,700 open. So I think that's where these 2 fights will go. My guess is this fight will be 8,700, 7,500 for Emil.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so I would rather pay 87 than 93 for Marcos. But at the same time, I think there's other pay-ups that I would really rather just put my stamp on than these guys.
Yeah, no, that's how I'm seeing it too. If it is 87, 75, I would definitely prefer the 600 savings from Emil to Marcos. I still, like you said, this fight's favored to go the distance. If it does, I don't think it's going to be optimal. I trust Fernie being tough. I think it mainly. Do you think Emil wrestles at all? Like Fernie's been taken down 2, 3, 4 times in his 3 UFC fights, but like Brady Heastan, Emil looks to me as a primary striker. Yeah, Brady Heastan, Journey Newson, they shoot for more takedowns.
I don't know. I guess if I was setting a line for takedowns, would maybe give him 1? I feel like 1.5 would be too much. And Maybe I feel like it's closer to a half than 1.5. So yeah, I don't expect too many takedowns.
Probably set at 1 is my guess. Prize Picks an underdog. If you do guys out there do want to look at props, sometimes those two sites, I don't look at it too much. I mean, there's still a lot of variance. They don't take nearly as much money as like lines in Vegas and stuff. So it's still a little inefficient. But if you do want any line, underdog and Prize Picks do take some lines. So I would take some money on their line. So I guess you can look at props there.
Yeah. And then I would say on the other end, I have the least interest in Fernie compared to Arichi Lang and Fely, of course. So he might end up being a fade for me, especially with limited lineups.
That makes sense. Yeah. If it is 87-75, we'll get to the Fely fight and Ige there too. I just don't love Ige never gets knocked out. I think his takedown defense probably holds up. I wrote in the thing, like, I feels like I'm playing for a decision win, which will be 70-80. We'll get to that fight later. But yeah, these 3 fights in general, the first 2 fights on the night and then the co-main event, not fights I love too much. So thankfully we'll be at the golf course, 4 p.m. Eastern. Someone gets a knockout or a big boy score early, at least we'll be enjoying our night, not making money, but at least I won't have to be tilting for the next 13 fights on the card. Let's keep it rolling. Next fight on the card, one I do have interest in. I'm definitely going to get some ownership in this one. Zach Palga taking on Bogdan Gusov. Looking at the odds in this one, pricing, Palga 8,400, Gusov 7,800. Palga very small favorite at minus 123 roughly, plus 103 on the way back for Gusov. One of the most likely fights to finish on the card, minus 325. Both guys coming in plus 140 inside the distance. I will say too, it's a rare, interesting spot where Palga, the small favorite, same inside the distance prop, but Gusov, much better round 1 props at plus 250 compared to plus 375. And that totally makes sense. I think we nailed it on the books. Were wrong last week on the Luana Carolina Stolyarenko round 3 props. You remember that?
Yeah.
Like, we were like, man, it was like double on the Stolyarenko. We did not see that coming one bit. And with the cardio and round 1 and how all that went, this one the books got right. The small underdog, still the better first round prop. But how does this fight go, man? We have one of the more boring fighters, so I always avoid in DFS, and Zach Palga. And now one of the best fighters. I mean, we've only seen him once in the UFC, but coming into the UFC, like all of his wins in the first round, no cardio outside of the first round. He throws hard, knockout or bust. I mean, can Palga survive round 1? And if he does, I think he can finish. I just don't think Gusov can go 15 minutes. So even though I don't love Palga as a fighter or dangerous, if he's alive after round 1, I think he just naturally finishes this fight. So yeah, sign me up, 84-78. My pick is Palga. However, in DFS, I always love the idea going, build a lineup, plug in Palga, take out Palga, go Gusov. That $600 can go from 32-way chop to a 5-way chop, which is thousands and thousands in the flagship. So the pick's Palga, but because of that 600, I wouldn't be surprised if I'm more overweight to Gusov for that reason. What do you see?
Yeah, I mean, I just agree with everything you said, really. I think Gusov sucks, but the one thing he has is early power, and he is the more dangerous striker in the first round of this fight. But that's all he's got is just a knockout chance. And if he doesn't get the knockout, he's probably not the better striker in the second and the third round. I also think Palga can lean on him against the cage as long as he wants. I think he can go out there and land takedowns. It's just that Palga doesn't do much. So he could do just that, like lean on him against the cage or get a takedown and do nothing with it, just lay there for 4 minutes. So I feel like he could win and just not make the optimal lineup by not doing enough. Whereas if Gusov wins, I mean, he's more likely to finish this fight than the last 2 favorites that we talked about, the 2-1 favorites. So if Gusov wins this fight, he's on the optimal lineup. So I would say he is my preferred play, but I'm picking Palga to weather the first round storm. And I picked him to win by unanimous decision just because I think he'll be boring enough to get there. But yeah, he could finish in the second or the third round, especially on the ground after a few takedowns and a bunch of strikes, and have a big ceiling. So this is going to be a fight I want to target heavily. Like I currently have it at a 4-star because of the Palga side, but I probably end up moving it up to a 5-star.
All right, so on that note, we're jumping all over the place, but I mentioned the 3 fights I grouped together that I didn't like in the Marcos and the Fely, etc. Now I'll group 3 together and have you rank them all kind of in the mid-tier. This Palga Gusov fight, Rodolfo Viera Petrosian, and then Michael Johnson Darius Flowers. All heavily favored to finish, all kind of in that mid-tier. How would you rank those?
Sheesh. Yeah, I mean, those are all good fights to target. I would say, oof.
I don't have a strong lean either. So if nothing came to the top of your head, that's fine.
I'd say it's close to a tie with Michael Johnson Flowers and this fight. And then my least favorite of the 3 would be Petrosian Viera.
All right, cool. I like it. 14 fights to talk about, 3 done so far. We'll keep it rolling. What's going on, Siggy? Hope everything's going well. We will see you in Phoenix pretty shortly as well. Next fight on the card, Jeremiah Wells, Max Griffin, -155. Wells +135 for Max Griffin. Looking at the pricing, 8,500 is Wells, 7,700 is Max Griffin. The odds in this fight are, I already mentioned, -155, 135. This fight's -130 to finish. Jeremiah Wells +200 inside the distance. Griffin +240. I'll let you take this one away because this another one was kind of giving me some problems.
See, my preferred play in this one's definitely going to be Wells. I think that Griffin's your better striker, especially over the course of 3 rounds. Wells probably has more one-shot power, but more so early in the fight, and I feel like everything he does has power in it, so he just naturally is going to slow down throughout the course of 3 rounds. But Griffin can slow down too, so I just don't feel good about either side if this is going to go late, and I think that Wells would be able to have the ceiling with rounds 1 and 2, land a few takedowns, maybe control the fight for 10 minutes throughout the course of 3 rounds. So Wells is the guy who has more of a ceiling and more ways to hit it because he could wrestle for 3 rounds. He could get a submission really in any round, or he could get a first-round knockout. Whereas Griffin, I think he's really in play for a closer to a 10x type of score if he gets a decision win. And less than that if he is spending a lot of time on his back, of course. But his real only ceiling would be getting an early knockout. So I'm okay with a little bit of Griffin because I think he's live, but I'm not going to make it a point to get him into any of my lineups where I do want to make it a point to get Wells in some lineups. I think Wells has a higher ceiling than a few of these 9K plays. So I'll probably be overweight to Wells, underweight to Griffin, and I'll take Wells to win by submission or 29-28.
Yeah, that all makes a lot of sense to me. Why this is giving me problems is because I'm picking Griffin. I'm picking the underdog, but still in DFS, like I like Wells more than Griffin because you play for optimal. The more fights, we talked about it last week, the more fights there are, the higher scores you have to expect. Like 80 from Griffin, I probably is not enough. And I think kind of like what I said about Fely earlier. Like if Griffin wins, I do think it's probably him being able to stuff the takedowns from Wells, lands more volume on the feet, the jabs in his face, like maybe pressure. Like I just think he wins like a decision probably. And I don't think a decision win I don't think he offensive wrestles really in this fight. I just don't think the ceiling's really there. No, it came back on me on this fight. So I like this fight more than those other 3, the Fely ones, the Marcos, the etc. I definitely like it way worse than the other 3, the Palgas, the Vieras, the fights we just talked about there. Ownership, I'm going to be curious on. Again, all of our ownership will be up. It's always one of the first things I look at. It's important in every sport. It is definitely important in MMA. But man, if Wells gets -155 for 8,500, just pretty bad money line for the price. So if that keeps his ownership down, even though I'm picking against him, 96, 111, 103, and 105 in his 4 UFC wins. He was on pace for another 100 plus probably last fight. Dominated Carlson Harris in the wrestling until he got anaconda choke. Should be 5-0 though. When he wins, he averages over 3 takedowns per 15 minutes. And he hits like a truck when he does land. So he has outs for upside, which is why I'm playing some. But I think Griffin can stuff the takedowns for the most part, lands more volume on the feet, has only been knocked out once. This fight's -130 to finish. If it doesn't finish, unless it's Wells getting 4 or 5 takedowns with all the control time, which I don't see, I think this fight probably busts. So I have it as overweight right now, just the nature of the card and not liking some other fights. I'm not going to have too much of this, though. It's not an overboard fight. It's probably more of a round the field. I prefer Wells because of the upside. Griffin's only scored over 100 once since 2017. I mean, man, even 85, it's not guaranteed to be enough. But on the money line and dog pick, I do think Griffin can stuff takedowns, make it competitive on the feet, and it's a close decision win. So Griffin by decision. Wells is the preferred DFS play in terms of upside. But this fight's really just man to me is how I see it. 14 fights, one that fight 30% combined, 25% combined, I think I'd be fine. Let's keep it rolling. Next fight, Devin Clark, Marcin Prachnio, minus 230 is Clark. Prachnio coming back at plus 195. Clark 8,900, Prachnio 7,300. This fight is plus 120 to finish. Clark plus 210 inside the distance. Prachnio plus 400. Throwing it to you with the question, does Devin Clark put on the wrestling shoes for 15 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, I'm picking him to win because that's his main edge. That's the biggest edge in this whole fight. So I do think he'll go out there and maybe win 2 rounds with wrestling. But yeah, he's going to have to. Well, I guess he could knock out Prachnio. Neither one of these guys have great chins. The other one, I mean, they both have decent power. So we could get a 100-plus point knockout from either one of them. But if Prachnio is not knocking Clark out, he needs this to be a striking match. And if it is, he still might not even 10x his $7,300 price tag. So we're really playing for the knockout on the Prachnio side. But Clark does have that wrestling edge. And if he goes out there and lands takedowns in every round and wins 30-27, he can score well in a decision. But I'd also worry about him not wrestling as much as we'd want and landing 2 to 3 takedowns in this fight, controlling it for 5 to 7 minutes. And he doesn't do a whole lot when it's on the ground either. So he could score 75 points in a decision too. And at 8,900, that's not enough. So I don't know what I'm going to do with this fight. It's just one where I started it at 2-star, don't really have much interest, but maybe I move it to 3-star because of the TKO potential for both sides and the wrestling potential for Clark. So that's kind of what I'm seeing in my head is I just up it a little bit more so because of the Clark side, but I would say he's my preferred play. He's the guy I'm picking to win. And I'm not going to make it a point to get Prachnio into lineups, but I would be totally cool throwing him in if I'm making a lineup by hand and I have $7,300 left for my last spot. Okay, cool. Let's throw Prachnio in. He could get a 100-point knockout. So it is what it's like those other 3 fights or 4 fights that we've talked about. I'm fine with any of them. I'm not going to make it a point to jam in any of those guys, but of the ones that we've talked about, Wells would be my favorite of the fights.
I like it. Yeah. This fight's kind of like last week too, in the fact of, I know you said it, you were like, any of the 13 fights, the 26 fighters last week could be optimal. Charles Johnson made the optimal. It wasn't the stone cold nuts, like the true optimal, but it won 65,000 in the flagship. And I could see that like any of these guys, the biggest favorites we don't have Oki's new line. It was minus 305. Who even knows? There might be no favorites over minus 300 now, but like I have Prachnio as a fade for 20 entry and below just because I think he sucks. I think he probably gets taken down and is off his back. However, I mean, these are big boys at 205 plus 195 inside the distance isn't bad. He has 11 knockouts. All it takes is catching the chin early in the first round. And next thing you know, Prachnio is someone you need on the optimal. So it's a great DFS card. 14 fights, 28 fighters, all pretty closely lined fights, especially when you take into consideration Prachnio will probably be like, 8% own or something like that. Still, I don't like his upside. I can't get to him in 20 and below. I will play some Clark, though. What I love first is he's 8,900. Joe Pyfer's 9,000. Like right away, Pyfer's going to be 2-3 times as high owned, rightfully so. I don't like necessarily using Clark as a pivot off of Pyfer. As much as I do, you can just play both of them, and those that be your 2 most expensive fighters. But I just think he averages over 2 takedowns per 15 minutes. And we just saw 2 of Prachnio's last 3 fights, Felipe Lin's fight and the Petrino fight. When he gets taken down, he has nothing off his back. He slows as the fight goes. I mean, I think Devin Clark can work him here, maybe land some elbows, make him quit, find a sub, do anything in this one. Just use his pace, his pressure. takedowns, top control, maybe get him out of there late or something. Plus 210 inside the distance isn't bad, but I feel like if he wins inside the distance, I feel like there probably is a big score coming because I don't just expect him to flatline Pacquiao. It's like one punch and that's it. I think it'd be he just outworks him and dominates him that way. So I think Devin Clark will be pretty low owned in the upper tier. If that's the case, I'll be playing some. Now, if he somehow came in chalky, yeah, no, I'm not playing Devin Clark chalk, but I don't see that the case. So give me some Devin Clark, no Pacquiao. I'm hoping late finish or something, but I'm hoping he puts on the wrestling shoes. Hit like what do we got? Dennis, the Rec Specs. Everyone loves the glasses, the blue light glasses. Hit that like, 25 people in chat, only 17 likes. Hey, pretty good so far. We do appreciate that. Appreciate that as well, though, Dennis. Watching live, watching on playback, that like button always helps us out a ton and much appreciated. Any final thoughts on that one? Let's keep it rolling.
Final thoughts would be of all the fights we've talked about and those that we've been ranking, Clark would be my second favorite.
And then Palga would be third?
Yeah. Well, shit. I forgot about Palga. Maybe Palga's my second favorite. And then Clark.
Yeah, I figured. Mine would go Palga. I think Palga, Clark, Wells would be mine right now. Let's keep rolling. Next fight, Loma Lupini, Bruna Brazil. Loma, one of the biggest favorites on the card, minus 280. Brazil, so 9,400 Loma, 6,800 Brazil. Minus 280 is Loma, plus 240 on the way back is Brazil. This fight's plus 150 to finish. Most of that on the Loma side, plus 215 inside the distance. Brazil plus 525. Same question. I'm going to throw it back to you. Is Loma going to put on the wrestling shoes?
I think she'll mix in takedowns, and that's why I'm picking her to win. I think that's why her line is where it is. If this is a striking match, I do think it's pretty damn close. And Brazil has like a 4-inch height advantage, 5-inch reach advantage, something like that. But it would be a slower paced striking match where they're both just dancing around the cage, picking their spots. And either could land some takedowns, but Loma is the better wrestler. She's the better and more dangerous grappler as well. So her grappling is what warrants this line, but she's just not good enough or active enough with her wrestling or on the ground for her to really score much more than $9,400 would need. I think her ceiling gets you right there at 10x, and that probably doesn't even cut it. So I'm just going to X this fight out of my lineups. Brazil is in play for a close decision win, but she probably doesn't 10x either, to be honest with you. So I have not done a 1-star fight yet since I started at SHIPIT Nation. This is my first one.
Damn. I'm gonna play some Loma. I mean, I'm playing the wrestling upside. Like, I totally get it. You look at the game logs too, 89, 95, 91. 2 of those were in decision. She had landed 4 takedowns in both of those, 2 minutes of control time, 7 minutes in another one. Like, I can see the upside. Like, 4 takedowns, that's plenty. I think 4 takedowns is in the realm of possibilities on this fight. I mean, like 108 strikes they land in this one. Like, you're patting them on the head. It's deemed a strike down there. If you get 10 minutes of control time, at the end of the day, it's just a big favorite that I think is going to be pretty low owned at 9,400. Especially this Oki line is going to be very important at 9,500. But regardless, like, in a vacuum, Piper's a way better play than Loma. For 400 cheaper, people will just go that route. So assuming your ownership's relatively low owned in the low 20s or something in this matchup.
Closer to 10 is where I'll start her.
Yeah, you're closer to 10. Dang, I was thinking high teens, low that. If it's closer to that, I'm 100% just going to play some Loma for wrestling upside. So average over 2 per 15. I think Brazil's a solid striker. Loma's a solid striker too, but the striking is competitive. Why not try and take the easiest path to victory? Hoping she does so. I'll play some at 9,400, but I get what you're saying too. You want 110 probably to feel good with Loma, and that's not even a guaranteed lock on the optimal, but that's probably what you want. And I see she hasn't scored over 100 once.
Yeah, I feel like her chances of hitting 110 points, like definitely sub 10%, but like maybe sub 5% of getting 110 points, in my opinion.
Fair enough, fair play. But hey, her ownership might be down there, you think too. I'll play some, especially if 20% gets me overweight. I will not be playing any Brazil. What's going on, Eric Garcia? Appreciate those words. Thank you, man. Thank you, Eric. Hope you're having a good day. Keep it rolling. Next fight on the card. Plenty to talk about. 14. This is the biggest, I shouldn't even say the biggest favorite. We don't have a line. The highest price fighter, Balaji Oki, taking on Timothy Kawamba. Again, we were supposed to have Oki taking on Hadzovic, which that line was minus 305, and Hadzovic was plus 255. It was 9,500, 6,700. Oki's price won't change regardless of what this line comes in at. So he's going to be 9,500 regardless. Kawamba, depending on what the line is, this is where DraftKings will, like if it's a pick 'em, if it's minus 110 a piece, DraftKings might put Kawamba at like 8,100, but Oki's price will still stay the same. Now, if we got minus 600 Oki and Kawamba's plus 400, he might be like 6,500 or 6,400. So DK will mess with Kawamba's price tag and make it fair according to the algorithm. Oki's won't change. But, I mean, break down this fight as best you can. We don't have a line. We were talking a little pre-show. This Kawamba guy, he fought last week on Tough and Tough. Literally last week, February 2nd. Got a second-round KO. He's 8-1, 4 wins by KO. Only lost by sub. Fights out of Extreme Couture. Coming up from featherweight to 155 in this fight. So, it's good to see he's not going to have to cut weight at 145 2 weeks in a row. I don't know. Oki making his UFC debut, though. Give the people a breakdown of this one.
So, yeah, I like this Oki kid. I think he's got that, like, Phil Hawes physique. Like, he looks, like, powerful. You could tell he's going to be a much stronger fighter in this matchup.
Hopefully he doesn't get cut. Phil Hawes,
yeah, I mean, I'm hoping he doesn't have as bad of a chin as Phil Hawes had, and he could be our new Phil Hawes, the good one. But Kawamba's moving up in weight class, taking this fight on less than a week's notice, moving up in weight class. So Oki's going to be a lot more powerful, a lot stronger. And Kawamba, so let's compare it to Hadzovic. I think that Hadzovic was the better pure striker than Kawamba, probably has more knockout power than him as well. I would actually say the only striking advantage Kawamba really has in this matchup is that he's got faster kicks, faster head kicks. Maybe he can land a head kick at some point. But Kawamba is a much better wrestler than Hadzovic, better grappler as well. So he's not going to get completely smoked on the ground here like Hadzovic probably would have. But at the same time, like his best asset is his wrestling. And now he's moving up, fighting a better wrestler, a stronger wrestler. And Oki's going to be the better striker, the bully in this fight, pushing forward, landing harder shots. And once he starts to hurt his opponent, he just smells blood and he starts to unleash until the ref steps in. And I think that's what we're going to get here at some point. Oki just bullies this guy until it's over. So I'm on the Oki side. I'm expecting him to be lined at least like minus 230, minus 235 or better. So I'm kind of hoping I'm wrong and it's less than that, because if that's the case, he's not going to get any ownership at $9,500. But either way, no matter what his line is, I want a good amount of Oki at $9,500. And then for me, Kawamba, he'd really just be a hedge play. Like if I ended up with a lot of Oki, then maybe get like 10, 15% Kawamba. But he's going to have to get off on his wrestling against a better wrestler, a stronger wrestler, a more powerful guy. And I just think it's a tough matchup for him, especially on short notice. So give me Oki. And I really liked what I saw from Oki.
Do you think he wrestles in this one? Because against Hadzovic, I mean, man, that was free. I thought like 95, like why would he not put on the wrestling shoes?
Right.
But at 9,500 in this, even having the striking advantage and just say he gets a second round KO, it's not guaranteed to be enough. So do you think he mixes in takedowns?
Yeah, it's a damn good question. I don't know. I think he could, but I also think he could just go out there and strike. So I don't know. I would love to know what his game plan was. Because I would like it more if he would go out there and wrestle, because Kawamba's one loss, he got his ass kicked. Really, he got dropped really quick in the fight, and then he just got out wrestled until he was choked out. And I think Kawamba probably spend a lot of time on his back here if Oki really wanted to wrestle. But I just don't. Yeah, I have no clue. I think he could beat him any way he wants to. So I'm not sure, but yeah, I like him either way.
No, I like to hear that. I'm going to wait for the line on this one. I'm going to look at ownership and all of that. Because if he somehow comes in minus 450, minus 120 inside the distance, he's by far the best play in the upper tier after Joe Pyfer. Like, we're not looking at great people up there. Lomo's up there, who we just talked about. Like, even Gregory Rodriguez is up there. We have the Hyder Emils, the Marcos. It's not that strong of an upper tier. So if we get Oki in a tier of his own with money line or inside the distance prop, him and Pyfer will get all the ownership. Now, if it's not like that, then like if kind of similar props as Loma or something, then I don't think he'll get as much ownership, and just like Pyfer might be like 60% or something like that. So I will be looking closely lined at the odds and, of course, look at projected ownership. So I did look at this PD plays. I thought there was, and then I just looked at our calendar again, and it wasn't on there. So if you're a member, definitely check the PGA Discord. Check the SHIPIT Nation, our website, and then look at our shows too. It's, I think, top left. But I definitely would check the Discord for that because I thought so, but now I'm not seeing it on our schedule. So I don't know, man. I don't know. Check the Discord for you. But all of our premium content, of course, will be up on the site. And we do have just a PGA only membership as well. If you don't want MMA, NBA, etc., you just want to go in PGA for the year. I think there's weekly, monthly prices for that as well. Full season, get in the Discord, just PGA only, cheaper prices if you want to check that out. Let's keep it rolling. Plenty of fights to talk about. Next fight on the card, Carlos Prates taking on Trevin Giles. 9,200 is Prates, 7,000 is Trevin Giles. This fight is Prates minus 265, Giles plus 225. One of the better fights to target on the card, minus 275 to finish, is this fight. Prates minus 155 inside the distance, Giles plus 400. So Prates, I do expect him to get a good amount of ownership in the upper tier. One of the few fighters expected to finish on the card at minus 155. Good fight to target, making his UFC debut. Looks like a primary striker to me. Trevin Giles, I think he's a fine fighter. He's not someone I really back very much. He's fought some solid competition. Plus 400 inside the distance at 7K. And kind of leverage off of Prates, at least what I'm expecting. I think Prates probably mid-30%, something like that. I'll play some Prates. He's dangerous. I'll probably play some Officer Giles as well as leverage and a fight that should be fun. How do you see this fight going? And then do you think Giles can have any success mixing in takedowns?
Yeah, I think he's going to need to win the fight because I do think Prates is the better striker, the cleaner striker, the higher volume striker, the more dangerous striker. He could maybe keep it close on the feet, just volume alone, I guess. And Giles looks like the bigger guy, like he would be able to land more one-shot power, but he just doesn't do a whole lot with it. So I would think he's got to go out there and land takedowns to win this fight. So if Giles wins, I think he's putting up 10x or more, because I would guess that maybe a quarter of the fight's going to have to take place on the ground, at least a quarter of the fight, for him to get the win. So I do like Giles, and I also wasn't overly impressed with Prates or whatever his name is. It was just his striking. He's just a pure striker. He does have, the little bit better than 60% ITD line, which is really solid here, and I do want a good amount of them in DraftKings. But I'm thinking I'll just match his round one line, which is closer to like 33%. And that probably puts me right in line with the field. Whereas Giles, I don't see him getting too much ownership, and I'm fine getting a little bit of leverage there. But I will take Prates to win by TKO at some point. I just think the strikes will start to add up, and he could probably put Giles away in the second or the third round. But that's what he's going to need to. If he gets a decision win here, I don't think he'll be on the optimal. So you could talk me into going underweight on him. It's just that I'm already fading Loma. Don't really love Marcos. Emil, don't really love it. So compared to those guys, I definitely think Prates is a better play on paper, and I am picking him to get the knockout. So yeah, I just think like a third of my lineup sounds good.
Yeah, he's plus 200 in round one. Like that's where I'll be playing. Prates, I would be shocked if he wasn't higher owned than Loma. There's Oki up there, who probably will be higher owned than Loma. Like Devin Clark, the Piper, the Prates. Like that's where we're talking about. I'll be using Lomos, the Clarks of the world when I'm eating more chalk as dogs, or like Joe Piper and stuff. But Prates is in my top tier. Like he's going to be one of the higher guys in my tier rankings. 275 for this fight to finish. A good striker. I think if he does win, it's probably going to be a finish. I have interest in Trevin Giles too, though. Like comparing him to Prackniel down below, I like him more than Ariche Long, especially knowing Prates will get some ownership and you get some leverage off that way. I like him more than Fernie Garcia. I like him more than Bruno Brazil. Like I like him more than a good amount of these cheaper dogs. And again, I think Prates gets some ownership, so you get leverage with some Giles too. So yeah, I really like this fight. One of my more favorite fights on the card. I think Giles maybe wrestles. Prates is dangerous on the feet. I think this is a fun one and one that does finish on the card. So I'll have some exposure, no doubt about that. Keep it rolling to coin flip, baby. Closest fight on the card, and this fight was rebooked from a couple months ago. Rodolfo Viera, Armen Petrosyan, minus 110 apiece. This fight is minus 200 to finish. We got Viera plus 135 inside the distance. Armen Petrosyan plus 215. Viera opened minus 130 this time around. So some money has come in on Armen Petrosyan. It literally is one of the best grapplers in the UFC against one of the best strikers in the UFC. There really is no two ways around it. Anytime it's on the feet, Armen Petrosyan is a massive favorite. Anytime it's on the mat, Rodolfo Viera is a massive favorite. Who's going to get the fight where they want it to go?
Yeah, this is the male version of Stoliarenko and Carolina from last week, where Vieira's a better grappler, but Armen's a better striker. So I kind of just see the same thing. Like if Viera goes out there, gets a takedown in the first round, he's super live for 95 to 98 points, and that's probably going to be on the optimal lineup if he wins. But if he doesn't get that first round finish, he's just going to slow down, where Armen, I don't see that happening. And when he starts to slow down, the takedowns are not going to be there, and Armen's just going to start to pick him apart. And I'm picking Armen to win by unanimous decision, but I picked Carolina to win by unanimous decision. And now I'm thinking he might just, I might just piece him apart in the second and third round and get a late stoppage. So last time this fight happened, I think I was still picking Armen, but I think I was overweight on Viera, and I didn't have a lot of Armen. This time around, I might go underweight to Viera, overweight to Armen. Just really because of freaking Carolina fight last weekend. I just think this is very similar to that fight.
Yeah, this fight, no strong lean here. I was hoping, I wrote it up yesterday, and the line was like minus 120, 100. I was hoping it was going to keep going with Rodolfo Viera because, again, make a lineup, plug in Viera, take out Viera, go Petrosyan, and it is only 200, but it make you a little different. Now that it's a coin flip, I'm not really sure what the odds are going to, or what the ownership's going to do. Like people usually like to tend to go to the grappler. Not a strong lean as much anymore. I'm picking Petrosyan, but it's not a confident pick one bit. I think he can stuff takedowns and eventually finish him on the feet. I think this fight gets finished. If it goes to decision, man, if it's Petrosyan by decision, it probably is a bust. If it's Viera by decision, I guess Petrosyan just stayed safe the whole time and fought off the submissions. But, man, I still don't know if he could stay on the bottom for 10 minutes against Viera in a fight like this. I don't know. I'm slightly Petrosyan, but
I don't really think Viera has 10 minutes of wrestling cardio, especially against a guy with a good get-up game.
Yeah.
So I think, I think that Armen should be much more likely to finish in the third round, more likely to win in a decision. But I think he's playing for like 10x in a decision win where he has 100-point upside, just like Carolina, just stuffing takedowns and fucking them up on the feet, and then eventually getting a stoppage. He could get multiple knockdowns along the way as well. So, yeah, I've just been talking myself into tripling what my ownership would have been the first time they were going to fight.
Yeah, that makes sense. I lean the Petrosyan side if I had to pick, but if I have 40% Viera and 20 Petrosyan, and I love everything else in my script, I'd go with it at the end of the day. I have no strong lead in this fight. Wrestler, if someone does, if you know anyone, I think I put it in the slate plan, but if you know anyone out there that max bet this fight, like put like their 5 units, 10 units and feel that confident, send them my way because I want to hear the explanation because I don't know how anyone can be confident in Viera getting a takedown or not getting a takedown, which probably is what this fight comes down to.
Yeah, this is one of those fights where the winner should look like a minus 400 favorite.
Yeah, 100%. Does it get on the mat or does it not? Totally agree with that. Big Driggs, appreciate you, man. Going to be a great weekend, no doubt about that. Hopefully you have a good weekend yourself. I think still 5 fights left, plenty of fights left, 50 minutes down. Still the main card to talk about. Again, appreciate everyone hanging out. Like button, subscribe button. Helps us out a ton. And if you want to join us at the Nation, a lot of different options, weekly, monthly, 6-month, annual, PGA, weights management tomorrow, MMA, 11 weeks straight, NBA, NFL, Super Bowl, baby. If you're a Chiefs or a Niners fan, good luck to you. NHL going on as well. Head over to the Nation, get in the Discord if you do join a monthly, 6-month, or annual package. Let's keep it rolling. Next fight on the card. Another great mid-tier fight. We talked about it a little earlier. Michael Johnson, Darius Flowers. Johnson coming in about minus 140. Flowers plus 120 on the way back. This fight's minus 280 to finish. Michael Johnson plus 130 inside the distance. Darius Flowers plus 165. 8,300, 7,900. Smack dab in the mid-tier. You did say you like this fight more than the Petrosian Viera fight we just talked about. Explain to the people why and who do you like more?
Yeah, I just think it's more likely to end early. And I also think that, like, if Flowers wins this fight, I think he's really competing for the optimal lineup because Flowers has big power. I didn't really remember much about Flowers, so I had to go back and watch them all again because I remembered him having a really bad ground game. But that's definitely when he's the nail. Like, he's a decent wrestler, and he used to fight at 185 pounds, and he's wrestling 185 pounders. Now he's fighting a guy who used to fight at 145 pounds, and they're meeting at 155. And I went back for Flowers' last fight against Jake Matthews, man. He was piecing him up on the feet. He was landing a lot of shots, and you could tell Matthews did not like to be there. And I think if he's landing those types of shots against Johnson, he's going to put him away. And I also think he could wrestle, land a couple takedowns throughout, on his way into getting a knockout as well, and maybe getting 110 points, just absolutely breaking the slate. I don't know what his cardio would be like, but his biggest issue is getting out grappled, and he's been submitted a lot. But that's the same issue for Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson's not a good grappler either. He's basically got the same ratio of subs to getting subbed as Flowers does. And I think that Michael Johnson's path would be to survive those early shots, and then you just piece Flowers up. He could piece him up in the first round. I don't know. I think he is the more cleaner striker. Overall, is going to be the higher volume striker, but he's not going to be throwing the heat that Flowers is going to be throwing in that first round. And then once Flowers starts to slow down, then Johnson can really pick it up in the second and third round and put a striking clinic on this guy and probably put him away in the second or the third round and put up a high score. But he's coming off a brutal knockout loss. Now he's fighting a guy with more knockout power coming down in weight once again. I think Flowers is going to knock him out. So give me Flowers first round knockout. I'll be overweight to him, but I still do want a good amount of Johnson as well because he is the better striker. Now, I don't know who's the better wrestler, but after the first round, I think Johnson's probably the better wrestler. And then they both suck at grappling, so I don't think we're getting a submission. It's just going to be whoever gets takedowns can land a lot of shots in top control. But if this does go all three, man, I have a hard time seeing it go all three, first of all. But if it does, I think they both could put up a decent score. So that's a reason where I just think that Armin could be on the optimal lineup and score 70 points and not get there. Whereas even in the decision, I think these guys are scoring more than 10x, and there'll probably be a few takedowns included.
Yeah, I don't think this fight goes to decision either. It would be interesting how it scores. Like, I'm nervous for Flowers' cardio, but also that last fight, which was his UFC debut, he did take on short notice. It was in elevation. It was in Utah. So him slowing down in pretty much after round one, you could tell he was pretty gassed. I think he took a nut shot or something early too. Took some time to recover as well in that one. I am nervous about the cardio though. I think it's Flowers in round one if he needs to. I think he needs to do it in round one. Not needs, but that's where a lot of his win equity is. Because I think Johnson's just the better technical striker out of the southpaw. Flowers more wild with a lot of power. Like, he catches them for sure. But if he doesn't, man, he slides back, the stick and move. Like, Johnson, I think, can just put on a clinic, actually, on the feet out of the southpaw stance against Flowers, who's way more aggressive and not as technical. And Johnson's got 80% takedown defense. Like, I think Flowers will try and mix in takedowns, physically strong. I think that zaps his cardio if he does go that route. And I don't think he finishes him on the mat. So I think it probably would work for him, but maybe hurt him in the longer term. I think Johnson, my pick is Johnson. He survives early, more technical. He eventually knocks out Flowers, who slows down as the fight goes. But it's not like Johnson has no pop. Like, that left hand, he puts combos together, he can hit. So I got Johnson by KO, probably second round, maybe third round. But I'll be playing Flowers too. This is a great fight. Great fight to target.
Yeah.
Michael W., very nice sweatshirt title. Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Go Badgers, baby. Go Badgers, Michael. Couple more fights left on the card. Keep it rolling. Gregory Rodriguez, Brad Tavares. Minus 230 for Gregory Rodriguez, plus 195 for Brad Tavares. This fight's minus 120 to finish. Rodriguez plus 150 inside the distance. Tavares plus 390. I guess I'll throw it to you. How does Gregory Rodriguez stack up against Loma, Oki, Pfeiffer, Clark, Pacheris? I definitely butchered that Pacheris. The 9,200. Prates. I guess Prates Rodriguez would be a great comp, but how does Rodriguez compare to most in the upper tier? And talk about Tavares.
Yeah, he's going to stack up probably higher than most of them for me because he's dangerous everywhere. He's the more dangerous fighter anywhere this fight goes. He's got much more punching power, and he's the much better and more dangerous grappler. He's the better wrestler as well. The issues with Rodriguez are his chin, first of all, but Tavares doesn't have a lot of power. He couldn't even knock out Chris Weidman in his last fight, so that's not great. And then the other issue for Rodriguez would be maybe his volume. So Rodriguez could lose just a 3-round striking match here, just based on volume alone if he's not landing big shots. But at the same time, on average, he's landing higher volume than Tavares too. So I just really like Rodriguez in this matchup. And we're on the Prates fight. I said I'm not going to match his 60% inside the distance line with my exposure, but I'll match his first round line with Rodriguez. I want to match his inside the distance line because any finish from this guy is going to score well. He could knock this guy out in any round. He could also submit him in any round, but it's most likely his best work is going to come early in the fight. And I think he puts up 100 plus points if he gets a finish. I would worry about Rodriguez winning a decision because he doesn't wrestle as much as I would like. And that is what would take him off the optimal lineup in a win. So right now he's got about a 40% ITD line. I'll probably have about 40% Rodriguez. And then Tavares, I don't think he scores well at all in the decision. So he's more in play, like targeting against that weak chin. So maybe I match his knockout prop, if anything. I'd rather fade Tavares, to be honest with you. But if I'm having 40% Rodriguez and he gets sparked in the first round, I'll be pissed. So I probably want like 10, 15% Tavares. But I like Rodriguez a good amount in this fight, and I think it's a good matchup for him to win, get a good win against the old guy who's going to be on his way out soon. And with his chin issue, you would think he starts to fight a little bit smarter and go out there and look for takedowns because he's a great boxer, a ton of power on the feet, but he's a better grappler than he is striker. So I would love to see him go out there and wrestle a little bit in every matchup, and then he's possible title contender in my opinion.
Yeah, I just don't see him wrestling in Brad Tavares takedown defense solid. We don't see Gregory shoot for as many takedowns, so I just don't see it as much in this fight. This fight gave me problems too because when he does win, 99, 109, 141, 120, 76, I'll take 4 of those. I don't know, 99 would be borderline, but you take 120, 141, 109 for sure. Whereas you look at Tavares, he's known not to score well at all. He hasn't scored over 100. Go back all the way to 2012 when he scored more than 100 points. Is that Tavares? But then I go in this one and I'm like, man, I'm picking the underdog. I'm picking Tavares in this fight.
Shit.
The chin of Gregory Rodriguez definitely concerns me. If the jab's sitting there for Tavares, I don't think Gregory gets takedowns. I think it stays on the feet for all 15 minutes. And at the end of the day, I just think the line's a little too wide, minus 230 up to minus 250. I think it's more Tavares is really tough to put away. I think it's probably goes a little later than people think. I'm excited to see ownership on Gregory Rodriguez because I love Joe Pyfer a lot more for 100 less. And if he's going to be up there in ownership, I like Prates more for 100 more as well at 9,200. And if like Rodriguez is going to be up there, maybe that's where I grab some of my Loma, some of my Clark, and I get underweight maybe on Gregory Rodriguez. I still, even though I'm picking Tavares as a dog, I still don't love him much though. Just be kind of like the Max Griffin. I'm picking him. Mm-hmm. However, I still think Gregory Rodriguez is probably a better DFS play than Tavares because even if Tavares wins, just like Griffin, probably a decision, 70 points maybe. Even on this card at 7K, 70 points is not something I'm looking for. So I'm 14 fights. If all 14 fights stay on the card, I'm playing for ceiling, even as dogs, and I just don't love that ceiling down there. Inside the distance prop plus 390, and Gregory's chin isn't great, so maybe I'll 15, 20%, something like that. But I do think he probably needs the knockout. At the end of the day, Tavares is my pick for an upset. I don't love it, though, in DFS for the upside. And Gregory Rodriguez, I don't pick him to win. So 9,200 or 9,100, jamming him isn't really going to be something I'm looking to do as well. But he also has upside in a win. So just a meh fight for me, really. I'll take the dog, though. I like other upper-tier fighters more. Let's keep it going. Next fight on the card, Robert Breek. Oh, what do we got? What's going on, Sheets? Enjoy the waste management. Pretty interesting method. Yeah, Marley's talked about that a lot. Look at the inside of the distance prop. Put the percent next to it. Always thinking, is our man Big Marley. 3 fights left, man. Over an hour in. Appreciate everyone hanging out. Robert Breek, Igor Porteria. Minus 195 is Breek. Plus 170 is Porteria. Great fight to target. Minus 800 is this fight inside the distance. Breek minus 185. Porteria plus 225. Is this an all-in fight? Are you going to make a rule in this one? We don't have pricing yet on DraftKings, but I'm guessing this is the 8,800 fight. Again, we have the 8,700 and 8,800 still open. Either this fight's 8,800 and 7,400 or it's 8,775 is my guess. Regardless what it is, it's underpriced for minus 800 inside the distance. So I'll be playing a lot. What do you see?
Yeah, I'm definitely not going to be all in. I'm not going to make a rule, for all in, but I do want a lot of it because I think we're going to get a knockout or at least a finish either way in this fight. And minus 800, that's by far the best ITD line on the card. So my issue is that if this doesn't end inside the distance, neither one of these guys is going to score well. And it would be Porteria who has a better chance at scoring well and is more likely to win a decision, in my opinion. This Bryzek guy, he's not that good. He's a big favorite here because he has 5 first-round knockouts, and it looks like he's got the touch of death. And Porteria's been knocked out in like all 3 of his last losses. So I feel like we're getting a little bit of recency bias there, but Bryzek is not that good. He's got power, but that's it. That's the only good thing about him. Other than that, he's kind of just more of a one punch at a time type of fighter. He's not getting any volume whatsoever. And I don't think I saw him look for a single takedown in 5, 6 plus fights that I've watched. I watched all of his knockouts. I watched like 7 plus fights of this guy. Never saw him go for a takedown. I did see him get dropped by a jab and finish shortly afterwards on the ground, though. And I think that Porteria is going to be the better grappler. I think probably the higher volume striker. And had Porteria had a different ref in his last fight, he could have got the win with that second round TKO. And what's the line look like there? I'm not so sure Porteria is not favored. So my preferred play is definitely the underdog in this fight. I will be overweight to Porteria for sure. I'm hoping that Bryzek is very chalky because I would like to go underweight to him. But if he wins, he's going to knock this guy out and put up a big score. So you could go out there and bet Bryzek for 195 minus 195 to win, or you could save 10 cents and bet a minus 185 to win inside the distance. Like there is no other winning for this guy. He's got to get a knockout, in my opinion. And I'm not a fan of paying 2-1 on early KO or bust type of fighter. So he's the type of guy who I love to fade, but at the same time, he's got a 100-point ceiling. So I'm not going to fade. I'll just go underweight, and I'll go overweight to Peteria, who I'm picking to win this fight. And I think he could win by knockout or submission, whereas Brycek is knockout or bust.
I love it. I picked Peteria in this one too. I mean, at the end, I just think the odds are too wide. I think it's two grown men that are going to meet in the center and throw down, and someone's going to fall, and laying minus 200 feels crazy to me in this one. So I love how we're lockstep, and I'd be shocked if Brycek wasn't one of the more popular fighters on the card. Again, I think it'll be 8,800, 7,400 this fight will be priced, if not 8,775. And if he's 8,800 as a minus 190 favorite, that's minus 185 inside the distance, like he's going to be owned. He's probably going to be one of the most chalky on the card. So Peteria leverage, he'll get some too. Probably not nearly as much as Brycek, though. I'm not listing Brycek as underweight, but I might end up, like if he's 55% and I have 45, that's underweight, but I'm still going to have a lot of this fight. I think someone goes down, and I hope Peteria gets the win. You and I both on the dog here. Would be nice to cash a dog ticket. 2 fights left. Co-main event, Dan Ige, Andre Fely, minus 170 Ige. Andre Fely stepping in on short notice for Lucas Almeida at plus 145. This fight's plus 125 to finish. Ige plus 215 inside the distance. Fely plus 400. 8,600, 7,600. This fight is priced. And yeah, I gave my take earlier on the show, but if you just tuned in, 3 fights on this card that I don't like, that I'm debating underweight or fade. Daniel Marcus, Ariche Long, Hyder Emil, Fernie Garcia, and then this fight, Ige, Fely, all of them slightly favored to go the distance, all primary strikers in the fight. I think they need a knockout or bust for the most part. Dan Ige, I don't know if the dude can be knocked out. And Andre Fely, I just trust him, man. He's a solid, well-rounded fighter, good movement on the feet. Ige does hit hard, but only 5 knockouts. Even a second or third round knockout for Ige might not be enough. I don't think really wrestling, like Fely averages takedowns. I don't think he really gets them in this fight. At the end of the day, I think it's a close decision. Fely in a close decision win, I think scores 70 to 80, which I don't really love at the price. Ige doesn't score well either, but if I had to pick one fighter to play, I think it would be Ige for me, though, because if plus 210 inside the distance, Fely has been knocked out, has been submitted. I think Ige has more outs for a finish, which is why he's my preferred play. But yeah, I don't love this fight. Good real life fight. What about you?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's a super close fight and probably goes to a close decision where they start reading off the split. And in that case, I would always rather be holding that underdog ticket. I think it's just really close, minute to minute. And maybe even favors Fely. I think that Ige is probably the better wrestler, probably has more one-punch power. But Fely is a solid wrestler. He's a decent grappler. He's got twice as many knockouts as Ige. So I just think it's closer to a coin flip, and that's what talked me into going with Fely. But I do think Ige is more in play for a knockout, which could put him up in the 100-point range. Whereas I think Fely's playing for 10x. If he wins, I'm hoping for 10x kind of thing. So I don't really want, even though I'm picking Fely to win, I don't really want a lot of them. He's kind of like my Tavares or Max Griffin for you. Whereas Ige, I'm picking him to lose. I think his upside would be a knockout, but I don't really want a lot of that either. There's just other favorites that I would go heavy on. So I think underweight to Ige and then maybe in line with or slightly overweight to Fely's how I'm seeing it.
Yeah, no, we see it the same. Like, if I had 20 teams and somehow this fight, and I love my script and I have 0 at this fight, I'd also be good with that too. There's 14 fights. This one, the first 2 fights of the night, I just really don't like much. Max one of those fighters on the optimal, preferably none, and it's a good start to the day here. So, yeah, I think it goes the distance, very close split decision, and yeah, you'd rather be holding a Fely ticket at that point. Last fight on the card, man, 14 fights, a lot to talk about. Let's hope, fingers crossed, we keep all 14. Main event time, Joe Pyfer, Jack Hermanson. Pyfer minus 255, Hermanson plus 215. This fight's minus 350 to finish. Joe Pyfer minus 185 inside the distance. Jack Hermanson plus 375. And the pricing on this one, 9K Pyfer, 7,200 Hermanson. I think Pyfer comes in as the chalkiest fighter on the card. 55, 60%, maybe. I don't know. There's still 14 fights. Just really the upper tier isn't great. Like Loma, Devin Clark. There isn't much competition that you really have to sacrifice playing Pyfer. I think he rolls, man. He's dangerous. He's young. He got the younger fighter, the faster fighter, the stronger fighter. Hermanson's slick down there. He's fought great competition. I think Pyfer does what he wants to do, though. I don't know if he hits harder than Francis. Everyone probably out there seeing those videos. I'd rather take a punch from Pyfer than Ngannou. I'm dying either way. But yeah, I think he just tracks him down, takes the center of the octagon, and eventually puts it on the chin. So I love Pyfer. Love him for 9K. I'm not going to make a rule to be all in on this fight, and that's mainly because like Hermanson down below, like if maybe Pyfer can win and put up 102. And if you fade this fight, you have a chance to get different and get there. Mainly though, like I could have 60 Pyfer, 15 Hermanson because I want to be under Hermanson since I think he loses. But still at 9K, like even 105 points, like we know, he did everything he needed in this fight and still wasn't optimal because others outscored him. I can always see that play as well. So not an all-in fight, but I love Pyfer in this spot. We'll be underweight Hermanson. What do you got?
Yeah, I don't disagree with the breakdown, but I'm going to pick Hermanson in this one. More so where the line talked me into it. Pyfer definitely going to be the more dangerous striker in the first and second round. I don't know if he's going to be a more dangerous striker if it gets out of the second round, to be honest with you. I don't know what he's going to look like if this fight gets extended. He's also going to be the stronger and more imposing wrestler early in the fight. But if this fight gets extended, like give me Hermanson in the third, fourth, and fifth round if it gets there. And that could be striking, or it could be him getting takedowns and dominating Pyfer on the ground. I think that if Hermanson wins, he's scoring 90-plus points, and he's on the optimal lineup. Whereas if Pyfer wins, he might be able to – he might score less. He might have a lower ceiling than Hermanson, in my opinion. But at the same time, he has like 65% chance to win inside the distance. And I don't hate matching that, even though I'm picking him to lose. But I would definitely go all in on Hermanson. That's a little high for me, to be honest. I'll probably go like damn near closer to 50-50 is how I'm seeing it, which will put me, I'm guessing, slightly underweight to Pyfer or right in line, but it should put me overweight to Hermanson. And that might even be off. Like if I'm making one lineup, I'm starting my lineup probably with Hermanson and getting to other underdogs. Getting to other favorites, because I do think Pyfer is the highest owned fighter on the entire card. And I don't even know that it matters what Oki's line is. Like if he comes out here minus 600, Pyfer's still probably going to be a bigger favorite. So I'm fine getting away from that. And it's just more so like this is the biggest step up. He has big power. That's the only special thing about his striking. He has really good body shots. He can land really hard on the chin, but he's not putting you away with volume. He doesn't have any, crazy angles that he's throwing at. It's just pure power. And that's the same thing with his wrestling too. He's just going to outmuscle guys, get them to the ground. He can get them in that arm triangle and put them away. But if he is getting takedowns in this fight and Hermanson's not going away, I think Pyfer slows down quicker than Hermanson does. And if Pyfer slows down, I think Hermanson just puts it on him and he could score 120 plus points. He's actually scored 110 points, I believe, 5 times in his career. So even as the underdog, I think he's probably 4 times more likely to hit that 110 point mark than like Loma would be. So I'm just going to be all in on this fight, but I might just flip it and go like 60% Hermanson, 40% Pyfer, something like that, because I just don't feel as good as Vegas does or as good as the field is going to feel about Pyfer.
Yeah, no, I think Pyfer will be the highest owned regardless what Oki's line is, regardless of anything, any fight canceled, etc. I had Hermanson as underweight. Maybe I'll go back in the slate plane because there's still the Ige feel. There's multiple of these fights that I didn't love. I'm going to keep a close eye on Hermanson's ownership. I don't think it's going to be too crazy, though. There's enough cheaper dogs down here. Pyfer will be high enough owned where, yeah, maybe I'll change that and get at least maybe around the field Hermanson and then fade some of those other fights or underweight those fights instead. But I'm definitely on Pyfer. He's going to be really high owned, though, so it's no hot take. 55, 60%, I wouldn't be surprised at. But as always, our ownership, projections, fight rankings, everything will be up. by Friday. Always keep a close eye on that. If anything changes, like a fight gets canceled Saturday, we'll go in Discord. We're going to be at the course at Waste Management. We'll have our phone. Hopefully service is fine. Take MMA chat. Excuse me. Hopefully don't have to worry about any cancellations though. Fingers crossed, 14 fights, man. Even 13. 13's fine too, but this looks like a very good DFS card. Like last week, only 2 chops for the flagship last week. Wouldn't be surprised to see a number similar to that as well. Again, MMA content, NBA. I'll be going live in a little over an hour with Rio today. NHL going on. PGA starts tomorrow. Head over to SHIPITNation.com. Super Bowl Sunday. Weekly, monthly, 6-month, annual packages. Big Marley, can't wait for this weekend, man. Any final thoughts?
Nah, man, I'm pumped. It's gonna be an awesome weekend just all around. I think that we got to find a way to watch this. Like, we're going to the casino that night?
Yeah, well, it'll be on
the phone or something. Yeah, if it's not okay, cool. Yeah, I got to find a way to watch this card because I do think it's an awesome DFS.
Should be at the casino.
Yeah, so looking forward to it. Awesome weekend. We got fights, golf, Super Bowl. So you can't ask for a better weekend than that. And I'll be out there in Arizona, so weather will be a lot better than here as well. I cannot wait.
Yeah, I don't know where you are now. I will say it's still going to be sweatshirts, sweatpants. It's dreary, man. It's in the 50s. Sad days.
That's sleeveless weather right there.
Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah. Sleeveless weather. You, Nades, Tambo, all the guys from up north. Going to be enjoying 50 and cloudy. All right. That's enough, though. See you on the NBA show title. Yes, you will. Hour 15, I will be with Rio on the Mayo Media Network. Like on the way out, subscribe on the way out. And again, next week's card, UFC 298, probably same time on this Wednesday. So I'll be heading down there to LA, I guess up there. It is. Good luck, everybody. Let's see some Shipping Nation logos up top. A lot of sports, a lot of money to be made. Be safe out there. Let's make some cheese. Big Marley, I'm Titletown. Have a good one. Good luck.